evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out tonight to discuss the master plan for our new dog park here in New Bedford. My name is Mary Rapoza, Director of Parks, Recreation, and Beaches, and I just want to recognize we have City Councilor Naomi Carney here and two of our Park Board members, Chuck Cotter and Elaine Safiolis. And we also have Jay Emperor. He's the designer that's been working on the dog park, and you'll be hearing from him in just a moment. We started the process earlier this spring. We've had an earlier public meeting. We got some great feedback from folks, and we're very excited about the dog park. It's going to, construction will start in just a little while. In the next couple of months, we'll start construction over there. The dog park will be going in at the what we call the acquired properties there on Hathaway Boulevard between Ruggles and Greenwood Street. And at this time, I'm going to turn the mic over to Jay so he can talk to you a little bit more about all the great things we're going to be seeing over there.
Thanks, Mary. I appreciate everybody coming out tonight on a beautiful night to see what we're going to do for your dogs, and I appreciate the opportunity to work with you on this. So I'm just going to briefly go over the plan, mainly the overall plan, and then speak to a few of the changes that we've made since our initial community meeting. So you're all familiar with the site, or I assume you're familiar with the site. The basic shape and layout of the dog park is the same. So we have a parking area here, an entrance area, and then this is the dog play area. So looking at the parking area, there's room for, I think, 13 or 14 cars, and since the initial meeting, this has been revised slightly to accommodate. We have some lighting in there for safety, and then we also have a control gate there that would be tied into the pass for the gate into the park. So if someone's coming here to park, it's someone that's actually going to the park to use the park with their dog. So that's a way to control outsiders from hanging out in the parking lot after hours or whatnot. And then at Greenwood, we also have some planters that could be permanent and or movable, so if they need to move them for a fire truck or snow plowing or whatnot, they could be moved, but they'll be pretty heavy duty. But it's a feature to encourage people to go into the parking lot and not go up and down the street. At the entrance, we have stairs up to the level of the dog park. Again, because it was capped, it's at a much higher grade than the surrounding streets. But then we also have a handicap walk up to that level. You would go to the gate right there and use your key pass or your pass to open the gate. It means you've paid and your dog's registered and you're all good. So you go into the little corral here, and then you can either go up in this plan to the small dog area, or you'd go down to the right and enter to the large dog area. Some amenities that we would have there are trash cans, benches in each area, and then also there'll be one light there. The lighting it's intended to be on not late at night, just probably more in the winter when the park's open, maybe a little bit later than daylight. I know there's some hours that need to be worked out, but there's not an overall lighting plan, so there won't be lights throughout the park, blinding people throughout the night. There's just a few spot locations for lighting. And then the fun part is the dog area itself. We're showing a small area of synthetic turf, because that was mentioned as something that some dog owners like to have their dogs play in the fake grass, if you will. And then the remainder of the park will be the pea stone that we discussed at the first meeting. There's 3 seating areas or gathering places, and again, they'll have trash cans, benches, and the mutt mitt. Do we have the mutt? We do have the bags inside the park. So if someone forgets their bag, they can take one of those. There'll be a perimeter fence, and then a fence in between the small dog and the large dog area. There's some planting in there, so some shade trees, just so when you're sitting out there and your dog's running around, you're not in the blazing sun. And then we also have some trees at the property edge here to screen the neighbors, give them some protection from people running in the park and whatnot. There's a few access points into the park for maintenance, if anything needs to get in there, so there'll be some breaks in the fence, and that's been added since the initial meeting. As for materials, it was discussed to go with a more traditional palette for materials, the benches, the lights, the trash cans. So we're shown here, then they would be in black, that's the color that we discussed. The fence, this is the typical fence that will be around the perimeter and then also between the two dog areas. It's a little nicer than a chain link fence. It's easier to replace or repair if there's any damage. And I think it looks nicer and it's cheaper. So, and then this shows the pea stone surfacing that'll be in the dog park. It's like a beige color. The park will be irrigated, so any waste or urine will wash down through it. Sounds crazy to irrigate stone, but it's for, you'll enjoy it down there. On a night like this, you're going to be glad that it was irrigated the night before. So, I'll just...
The initial phase of the dog park, including the design, has been funded by a grant from Stanton Foundation. The Stanton Foundation grant will provide all of the initial construction pieces. It will not provide all the amenities. It was a generous grant, but it's not going to do everything we want to do in the dog park. We are considering a pass key system for folks to use the dog park. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is that you would get your pass key at the city clerk's office downtown at City Hall, and that would be a way of ensuring that any dogs using the park are registered and have all of their shots in place. Also, there would be a small fee that has not been determined yet, but there would be a fee associated with that, and that fee will go into a revolving fund and will be specifically dedicated to the dog park, so that as people are buying passes, we'll start to collect some funds. And one of the other things we're doing is we're organizing a Friends of the Dog Park committee, and that committee will have a lot of latitude in making recommendations on how those funds are spent. And that committee will also have a lot of say in the dog park rules and regulations and the hours and even the fee. And we're encouraged that we've had a really good show of support for that idea for Friends of the Dog Park. And if anyone is interested in joining that effort, they can contact either my office, Parks and Recreation, or the City Council office, and we'll take down names. And that committee will also be there. They'll be kind of the overseers of the park. So other dog park communities have similar efforts with Friends of Dog Parks, and those groups are really instrumental in making sure that everybody's happy with the way that people are using the dog park. And I'm confident that our dog park committee will also be doing that going forward. If anybody has any questions or any comments, I will be happy to bring the mic to you so you can contribute to the conversation.
The fencing on the park itself, how tall is the fencing?
6 feet tall for the fencing.
6 feet tall.
Is there a limit on how many dogs can go into the park? Is there a capacity for small and large dogs?
That is a really good question that has not come up in the past. And again, that's something that the Friends of the Dog Park Committee will be looking at so that we can determine, what is a safe limit.
Yeah, you don't want like maybe 10 small dogs and only one big dog, and it's just have it equal out and just know the capacity, how many dogs can go in the park at one time.
Yeah, no, that's,
They are separate, but you want to know how many dogs can go into the park at one time. You know what I mean? Say we have a limit of 10 dogs, and you have maybe 12 people that want to bring their dogs in. I know the limit. So it'd be much easier for people to know.
no, that's a good point, and I'm sure we'll definitely jot that down so that the committee can come up with some parameters. That's a good point. Anyone else?
Now, is this going to be just for New Bedford residents? I mean, or are we going to have surrounding communities coming in here also?
We would like to make it available to folks who are not from the community. They would still have to have their dogs. They would have to prove that their dog was registered. They would, I imagine, because that's generally what we do, pay a higher fee for the use. And there's one of the conversations we had is that rather than giving them a yearly pass, maybe we would give them a 2-day pass or some short-term pass so that they would not have complete access to the park. And one of the things that we had talked about was, creating a destination park. And if you create a destination park and you invite people to come visit it, you have to have an accommodation for them to come in. And so that has not been determined, but it is something that we will be discussing.
Getting back to this gentleman over here about how many dogs, I think some of that is going to be, it's not going to be packed, like jam-packed, but some of that will have to be up to the owner of the dog. If you feel comfortable managing your dog with 10 dogs in there, or 4 dogs in there, or 8 dogs in there, you have to know your dog too, and which you're comfortable working around.
When are they going to make a determination on whether we're going to open it up to other communities? When is that going to come into effect?
That will be determined when we when the Friends of the Dog Park Committee start meeting.
There was one issue at the last meeting that was kind of a hot topic, and that was parking on the surrounding streets. And what we've done is on Greenwood, there'll be resident-only parking there, so that's a way to minimize people from not in the neighborhood parking directly on the street. They could probably park on Ruggles Street, or even at the high school. Yeah. Yep. But that was our way to alleviate some of the pressure on the immediately adjacent neighbors.
How many parking spots?
I believe there's 13 or 14. 14 and then 1 handicap spot.
Yeah, I just wanted to say a couple of things about the Friends of the Dog Park. We do have probably about, I think, maybe about 50 people who have an interest in it. Anybody else that would like to join there can call the city clerk's office. Donna Britta will be taking the names. Make sure you leave your name, your address, your phone number, and your email address, because we're putting together that list now. A couple of the committee members are taking it upon themselves to contact them so they can start a meeting. So all these issues and all these different questions being asked about time, how many dogs in the park, what the fees are, whether or not we're going to allow, what is going to be for people that are out of town. Those things are all going to be determined by the Friends of the Dog Park. So I think that anybody that is really interested in working with the Friends of the Dog Park and have great ideas about these things, you don't necessarily have to be on the committee and be there constantly, but get involved in the beginning. Decide whether you want to be on the committee or even on a subcommittee, because I know that there's a lot of people that would like to do some fundraising efforts. As Mary said, we got X amount of money to do what we can do, but it does take a lot more money than what we have. So for the nicer amenities, we're going to have fundraising efforts and things at the park. So these are the things that, the ideas and what you want to see in the dog park is going to be part of what the Friends of the Dog Park is going to do. So I suggest that anybody in the room who's interested, you can leave your name with me, and I can submit it to Donna so we can get the email list going, because we'd like to get that meeting set up rather soon, because we want to make sure that during the construction phases and when we're ready to open the dog park, that all these rules and regulations, key cards, prices, all these things that we want to do within this dog park is all set and ready to go.
Are there certain qualifications to be on that committee?
No, I don't believe so. Just a New Bedford resident, I would think, would
Right.
be the only criteria.
Just one other question, sorry. The large dog and the small dog area, what decides what is a large dog and what is a small dog? Does anybody have a specific requirement?
I'm going to look to the Friends of the Dog Park.
I would say little bites, if they eat little bites, they're little dogs. If they eat the big bites, they're big dogs.
Generally, it's any dog over 30 pounds is the big dog. Anything under is in the small area. I have a 40-pound dog, which is a beagle, and he has to go in the big area.
But again, that would be something the committee would take up.
Right, they would determine that.
There certainly are lots of really well-established dog parks locally and around the country, so there's lots of models to refer to. Luckily, we don't have to reinvent anything.
Is Parks and Recs, they're gonna oversee the whole park? So if someone has a complaint because someone's not following the rules and that kind of stuff?
Right, so the park will come under the Department of Parks, Recreation, and Beaches, and the park board has, they also have a say in what happens at the park. And just as we have friends of Buttonwood Park, they do so much at the park. They really take a lot of initiative. They bring a lot of energy. They bring resources. They bring ideas. So this Friends of the Dog Park would be the same thing. Once they've got something, an idea that they really want to run with, they would bring it to the department, and then at some point, once it's gelled, it goes before the park board. And we're really, we want to support what you're doing, and we're really looking forward to getting that committee started so that we can start bringing some of these ideas into concrete forms.
What were the actual changes that you made from the last plan that we've seen?
So some of the changes we've made since the last meeting were this fence along this edge, we had it too close to this residence, so we moved it back this way, which actually enlarged the small dog area, which was one of the comments too, is people wanted the smaller dog area larger, so that helped with that. We did add the lighting, so we have pole lights, 3 pole lights here, possibly one on this side. We're doing the testing for that. And then at the seating areas, we just have a low bollard light that would just shed some light right on the seating area, but it's not going to throw it throughout the park. We added the access at the fences. We revised the entrance area a little bit. We added the synthetic turf. We added larger planters here, and then we added the stipulation that they'd be resident-only parking.
How far up on Greenwood Street are you going for the residential parking?
So I just want to be clear that the residential parking is a recommendation from the design firm. There's a whole process that would have to go through City Council and the Mayor's office in order for the residential parking to become concrete, but that is the recommendation that the design firm's making. Anyone else? Anyone have anything they'd like to add?
I must have missed it. What's the timeline, please? What's the timeline?
So the design process is wrapping up. This is the final presentation for the design process. The next thing will be getting the Friends group together and then starting the construction process. So once the design is concrete, which will be after this evening, because we're getting really good feedback on it, then we'll start, actually laying out the construction schedule and acquiring the materials. So construction is probably, I think there's a good chance it'll start this summer, but certainly by the fall we'll start to see some construction there.
When do you think it'll be usable? When do you think it'll be usable?
So if construction goes on schedule, which is what we're expecting, so that would be this summer into the fall, I think that certainly this time next year we'll be able to use the park, and possibly earlier. Okay, well, if there's no other questions, I want to thank everyone for coming. And if you're interested in the Friends of the Dog Park, please contact either myself or Councilor Carney, and we'll get this going, and soon we'll be in the dog park. And I just wanted to thank Jay Emperor of Presley Associates in Boston for this great design effort, and thank you for coming all the way down here in the traffic and joining us.
Happy to help.
Thanks.